Now the mic's on, working. Get the voice working too. All right. I would entertain a motion with regard to our business from last month, so that before we conduct any further business with the board, we have our appointment.
Mr. President,
Yes.
I'd like to make a motion to appoint Lynn Robeson to the Hudson School District Board of Education.
Very good. Is there a second?
I second.
All right. We have a motion by Kate, second by Megan. I guess the only other discussion would be is that this follows action already taken by the board in doing interviews. And, we had 5 applicants for this position, and after consideration had nominated Lynn, but this is the formal motion to appoint now that the vacancy actually exists as of November 30. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. And now, Lynn, welcome back to the board.
Thank you, Mr. President.
And now you have to do the oath of office and make that official.
I guess I'm standing. I, Lynn Robson, having been appointed to the Board of Education of the School District of Hudson, swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Wisconsin, and will faithfully and impartially discharge the duties of said office to the best of my ability, so help me God.
All right. Very good. Thank you. Now our legal obligation, she just has to sign, and there we go. Now we're off. Next up, we have, since Heather left, and by the way, I should state for our audience that we gave her recognition at her last meeting, which was our work session in the last week of November. But at this time, she was serving as treasurer, so at this time we have to elect a board treasurer. And to do that, we need a nomination.
Mr. President, I'd like
Yes.
to nominate Molly Powers for treasurer.
All right. There's a nomination for Molly. Molly, do you accept the nomination?
I do.
All right. So we have one nomination. Any further nominations? That's my first call. Any further nominations as call number 2? And call number 3. Any further nominations? Otherwise, I entertain a motion to appoint by acclamation.
I'll make a motion to appoint Molly as treasurer.
Elect, I guess.
Okay,
Elect.
yeah,
elect.
elect.
Elect as treasurer. All right. Very good.
Second.
All right. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Didn't hear any, so Molly, you are elected treasurer, and thank you. You'll serve out this term through May of 2024, when we will then have all the officerships will come up for election again. Next up now, we have recognitions for community appreciation, and that would be Tracy.
Yes. So this Community Appreciation of Service is part of a nomination process from each of our school buildings. And we recognize our community members who contribute to our mission and go above and beyond for our students and our staff. So the first person up will be Shannon Sexy.
Good evening. It is my pleasure to nominate or to award this. She's already been nominated by me, to Sandy Madsen. I talk about Sandy Madsen at our celebrations every year from Holton because she runs the Garden Club, where we have 100% participation of our students who volunteer to go and help Sandy every Thursday. Sandy has been giving her time and her talents as a master gardener for 15 years at Holton. So it's my pleasure to give this award to Sandy. I'll hold this for you.
Thank you very much. I'm very honored. Actually, I'm extremely blessed to be able to volunteer at Holton Elementary. My goodness, the support that I get from every single person, between the administration, the support staff, the head chef, the cook. She tells me what to grow. They like more cucumbers, please. But it's wonderful. The custodian is out there helping, and the teachers, they just are wonderful as well. So do you even know what is going on out there? Do you want to hear a minute? Okay, there's 4 parts. On the very first day, we have a greenhouse, if you don't realize, and the very first day, every single student in groups of their class, about 20 kids, come into the greenhouse and plant something, whatever, every grade level has a different option, and then they come again as a class and plant it outside. And then the maintenance is done on Thursdays during noon recess. And every classroom sends about 3 kids, rotating every week, different kids, and they pull weeds or pick bugs or thin or plant more, whatever it is that needs to be done. And they're wonderful. They'll pick cherry tomatoes. Can I eat this? Right here? Yes, you sure can. And then there's the support staff, their families, all summer. We have a couple families every week of one. Lynn was one of them. And Tim actually was out there helping. And whatever needs to be done, if it's picking, that's great. But a lot of it is weed pulling. It's really just the work, And then there is the rest of the people. I've had master gardeners all this time. This is a St. Croix Valley Master Gardener project that I get hours for, like 500 hours a year. And I have a crew that come, different crew every year, but they come on Thursdays and help out. And we have my husband, who I would not be able to do this without him. He builds raised beds, he does the foundation for the greenhouse, poured the sidewalk. It's a thankless job being my husband. And a lot of other people that help along the way. Like, Tim, did you even have kids at Holton?
Yes.
He did, okay. He's wheeling wheelbarrows of mulch, I think it was, in his wheelbarrow. So there's lots of parts, and we've won some national awards because of participation, so it's wonderful. So thank you very much for this honor.
All right.
Mr. President?
Yes. Megan.
Sandy, I just want to say thank you as a Holton parent. I have a 3rd grader, and she loves it. It's, when she got to bring home the pumpkin in the fall that they had planted the previous year, and thank you for helping her learn how to weed, because now she helps me better at home with that over the summer.
All right, yes, and thank you, Sandy. Just before we started the meeting here, I made sure that I said hi. I've known the Madsons for, more than 16 years. They go to our church, and we've been members there since the mid-'90s, but got to know them better when we went on a service trip to New Orleans, Biloxi, in 2007, I think it was, and it was shortly after that Sandy retired, and I've been out there to visit those Holton Gardens, and they're just awesome, and it's amazing how those years go by, but thank you for doing that for the last 15 years, and here's to 15 more years of doing that. Thank you. Next up, we'll have Hudson Middle School. Is that Jim going to present that? All right, very good.
Good evening. Thank you so much for having us. The Raider Network at Hudson Middle School is being recognized for outstanding service, collaboration, and contributions to the students of our middle school. The team of volunteers led by Aaron Vandenbark have created and managed the Raider Network for the past 5 years. These compassionate and empathetic volunteers secured donations of snacks, Raider clothing, hygiene products, and holiday gifts to give to our students in need at Hudson Middle School. Every day, a volunteer faithfully helps our students get what they need. They've also readily found donations to cover unexpected costs of things such as basic needs, clothing, boots, athletic equipment, etc. Without the network, these basic needs would go unmet, and we all know that having these basic needs is vital to the success of our students. The network has grown over the years and now serves approximately 75 students at Hudson Middle School. We are very grateful and very appreciative of Erin and her team of volunteers that include Holly Steele, and Mary Prince here, and then also Michelle Heckman, Liz Larson, Megan White, and Molly Hagman. So thank you so much.
All right.
You can speak if you want to, you don't have to. There might be some questions, I don't know.
Sure. We better move this down a little bit. Hi, my name is Mary Prince. I am one of the people with Holly and Aaron who started the network, like Mr. Doolin said, about 5 years ago. When we started it 5 years ago, we served, our numbers were in the low 20s. And we just made cards for all the kids with their photo ID on it, and we made 70 today. So we have grown tenfold. So thank you to the Hudson School District. Thank you to Mr. DeLune, the office people who help us every day come in and out because we have to get food from the church and we bring it in our cars to the middle school and stock it all. So thank you to everybody.
Thank you. Thank you for your efforts. And last but not least, we have,
Yes, our final individual being recognized tonight is Patrick O'Keefe, and unfortunately, he wasn't able to be here tonight. But I do have the statement from Leah Wahlberg, who nominated Patrick, and Leah is the kindergarten teacher at Willow River, and Patrick serves in her classroom. And Leah had this to say about Mr. O'Keefe. He is dedicated, reliable, and extremely hardworking. He jumps in and handles any tasks in the classroom, from helping to open milks at breakfast, to catching kiddos up on a project they missed, or even sitting with them when they need extra help on their assignment. He is well liked and has such an easy energy to be around. But above all that, it is the relationships that he makes with every student in my class that I am so deeply grateful for. I have always believed that the more adults a child has in their life that listen and get to know them, the higher the success rate of that child. Pat makes relationships with every student, even the students that push back. He is one of a kind, and I'm ever so appreciative of his help in my classroom.
all right, congratulations, Pat. Yes, it's really important that we have the volunteer support that we have, and we appreciate very much, so. All right, next up, we have citizens request to speak. Is anyone asked to speak? All right. So moving on to reports. Dave, next up, state report card.
Thank you,
report.
Mr. President. Appreciate it. So tonight we're going to give you an update on our state report card results. This really is a celebration. It's a celebration first and foremost of our students that do the work that earn these results. Also, certainly our teachers and our staff and our families. It's a collaborative effort to make sure that we get the results that we're getting and we continue to grow. So I want to provide a little bit of a background on the report card, how the process works, and then a quick look at our results. So the what, the why, and the how. So what do the report cards do? It's a quick, large-scale overview of the measures of school success, primarily based on state assessments, but not exclusively. There are a few other measures like attendance and truancy that go into it, but primarily we're talking about state assessment scores that play into the overall score. And why do we do this? The state believes, and I agree, that it's helpful to be able to compare our progress with the progress of other schools. We use it in a number of ways, and that gets into the how. We use the data to reaffirm or adjust. When I say reaffirm or adjust, we already know our assessment results. By the time the report card comes out, we've had the assessment results. But the report card allows us to look at it a little bit differently, and most importantly, it allows us to say, okay, we think that we're moving in the right direction here. We think we need more attention here. Let's make sure we see how the whole state is going, because one of the things that we have to keep in mind is the assessments change, and the way they use the report card change, or the way they calculate the results on the report card. So it's really important to compare against the districts that we benchmark, our 14 high-performing comparable districts, as well as the state. So that's how we use the data. The next slide is an overview. This is our district report card. You'll notice there's a link to the right, and that's a link to all of the other school report cards. Actually, the district report card is in there as well. This is just a snapshot of the cover of our overall district report card. If you look at the upper left-hand corner, you'll see the overall score and the exceeds expectation or 4-star rating. That is based then on the graph to the right. So that pie chart there shows the distribution. Depending on a few variables, primarily, actually just one variable, it's the free and reduced numbers in a district. That priority can change a little bit. That's the makeup for our district. And then it's broken down into 4 priority areas. The first one is achievement in the upper left-hand corner. You can see that our overall score was 77.4. That's then broken down into an English language arts score and a mathematics score, and then you can see that score as compared to the state as well, the blue bar being Hudson, the gray bar being the rest of the state. We track that. We track both over time, obviously our district results, but then also the state results. We perform obviously better than state average. So it's important for us to see that gap increase. What we want to see is that we continue to outpace the state, but at a greater pace as we progress through the years. Then on the upper right hand, you'll see growth. Growth is a 3-year average measure of students' growth on the assessment from one year to the next, but then averaged over 3 years with the most recent year getting the most significant weight. That's growth, again, looking at English language arts and mathematics. Our district, as it should be, is our priority is more on achievement because we are an affluent district and we achieve very well. It's most important for us to look at achievement over time. I'll get into that a little bit, why that's so important. Then if you go to the lower left-hand corner, this is one that has recently changed. It used to be called, you might remember, the Closing the Gaps measure. It's now called target groups. Closing the Gap looked at subgroups in our district compared to all other districts or all other students in the state not part of that subgroup. This changes that. Now what we're looking at is the lowest 25% performing students across a number of measures in our district only. So this is asking the question, how are we doing with our students that need the most support to be successful? That's what that measure is all about. And then on the the lower right-hand corner, you see on track to graduation. This is the one that takes into account things like graduation rate, takes into account chronic absenteeism, and I'm going to point out the 3 measures because there's a why behind this. So obviously graduation is a key indicator and one of the most important things we do at the high school level. Then you'll see 3rd grade language arts. The reason they pick 3rd grade is because there's a substantial body of research that suggests if a student is reading at grade level by the end of 3rd grade, they're likely to continue to read at grade level and be successful in their future educational endeavors. And then 8th grade math is based on that same set, well, it's same logic, but a different set of data that suggests that if a student is algebra ready by the end of 8th grade, they're likely to be successful in high school math. So the state selected those 2 aligned to some overall research that guides our work. So that's a quick snapshot. On to highlights. First of all of our schools meet, exceed, or significantly exceed expectations. And I think we take that for granted, but it really is significant. When you look across the state, there are many districts that they can't say that. So we're proud of the work that happens to make that a reality. Overall district proficiency increased in both math and ELA. That's fantastic. So we know we're high performing. So creeping ever so slightly each year is exactly where we want to be. We want to continually increase that total percentage of students that are proficient in ELA or math. We saw gains across the district in both of those. We have the highest achievement in both ELA and math in CISA 11 and across the Big Rivers Conference, which is certainly cause for celebration. The last 2 deal with percentiles across the state. So in ELA, in achievement, we're at the 93rd percentile. That is amazing and fantastic, and again, a huge celebration for our kids, our staff, and our families. And at the 92nd percentile in math, fantastic. We have goals to increase that. You know that we benchmark against our high-performing comparable districts. We'd like to be in the upper quartile. If we get there, we used to assume we'd be at about the 95th percentile. We'll be at the 95th percentile before we actually get there because our high-performing comparable districts are doing well also. But we've made gains here. Our percentile has increased over the years, and we're certainly proud of that. Now, focus areas. So a few things that we need to, this is another thing we can look at, right? We can look at, well, where are areas for growth? One is that growth as a measure is relatively flat. Now, growth is really interesting in that it's that measure for all students from one year to the next. It's critical. For a teacher, it's the most important measure. Overall achievement from a teacher's perspective isn't the most important measure because they have students for 1 year. They want to get them from here to here, all of them moving. We know if that happens for all students over time, we'll see achievement go up, which is a large-scale measure that's more important from a district perspective to track that. The other thing we know about growth is that it's very inconsistent across grade levels in schools. So we need to use that data to find out where our opportunities to improve would be. And we also see an achievement dip as students transition to from elementary to middle school. That happens in most districts, but ours is something that we really need to focus on. It's relatively significant. We're making gains there, but it's an area of focus. And then another focus area is that ELA achievement lags behind math. So when we look at overall achievement, math it edges us out just a little bit, and we know if you see achievement high in one level, you can assume that the students are capable learners. We should be able to see comparable achievement across both. So we have some work to do there. So that leads us to next steps. And I just talked about this, but it's worth pointing out. Increasing the number of students who meet proficiency is our highest priority. That's why we have those 2 district goals that are about proficiency. We're at about 56% proficient in ELA and math with a goal of 58. That number is deceiving. As I said, that number equates to 93rd and 92nd percentile across the state. But we have room to grow, and we have quite a few things in play that will help us do exactly that. We know that if we continue to grow, if you have continued growth, achievement gaps will shrink and all achievement will rise. It's critical that we focus on that. So therefore, what are we focusing on? So these are some of our next steps. Middle school math. You know, we've been talking about middle school math for a while. Really proud to report that we had a 3.9% increase in proficiency in middle school math. Our middle school teachers did outstanding work this last year. It was a pretty Herculean effort. They had a lot to do with a little bit of time, and they dug in and yielded these results by creating their curriculum kind of on the fly because we needed to shift from a resource we were using. Now we're super excited because we've implemented a new math resource at the elementary or at the middle school level. So we anticipate these scores to rise even higher, and they're doing amazing work. Very positive, very collaborative. Phonics and the science of reading, we've talked a little bit about this, but our efforts to align our elementary instructional practices to the science of reading and with a focus on phonemic awareness and phonics, we know will result in time in greater achievement. So super excited about that. We know that it's aligned to our needs. This one I'm really excited about. This is like a curriculum guy, right? I get really excited about a 612 resource, or a 611 resource. Secondary English language arts is the most complicated curricular area to go through a cycle of improvement. It's very diverse, there's a lot going on, there's many different stakeholders that are at play. And we have not only have we not had a consistent resource, we actually didn't have a resource at the high school level in English 9, 10, or 11 historically, since I can remember. We're gonna not only have a resource in 6 through 11, or half of 11, halfway through 11th grade, that resource is going to be from the same publisher, which is going to, what that will do is flatten that dip you see when students transition from one level to the next. They'll be able to go from 8th grade to 9th grade and go, oh yeah, I'm familiar with the way this program runs. And this was selected by teachers. We did say we needed to have a resource. We believe that we need to build a program. We need to provide a little more structure to what we're doing in ELA. The teachers did a great job of digging in and then ultimately selecting that same resource. We will be bringing that to the board this spring so you can review it and see it and get a sense of what that's all about, but excited to move forward. And then finally, elementary intervention. We made some significant adjustments to the way we deliver elementary intervention, specifically in English language arts, but a little bit in math as well. At the next board meeting, you're going to have Lisa Scoyen and Sarah Grossenbacher, who's a reading teacher, present on what they're doing with intervention, and it's pretty fantastic. And we know that all of these things are aligned directly to the needs that we've identified by our test scores and by the report card, and we believe will ultimately yield the results we're looking for. So with that, I am open for questions.
Board members have questions for this report?
Mr. President?
Yes.
Thank you for the great report, Dave. It's very exciting to see the growth. I was wondering, when you're looking at looking at the comparable high-performing districts or just districts in general, are you ever watching to see like, oh, well, this district had a big jump in their middle school math. Let's call my friend on the phone, and what did you guys do? Are you trying to learn from others?
Yes, in two ways. So yes, we do exactly that. We pick up the phone and we call. And many of those districts are part of WASCD. It's an organization at the state level. I'm a member of the board for that group, so we have a really good network where we can share ideas. But we also have a structure. We're trying to build a network and saying, hey, folks, we're all in the same boat here. How can we more systematically share this information and learn from one another? So both on the informal and trying to structure something a little more formally.
That's great. Thank you.
Sure.
Mr. President,
Molly?
I just have two questions. This comes up once in a while. People, and sometimes me, I'm confused by what does this mean in terms of what we're doing. What does proficiency mean? What are the different measures that we label?
Yeah,
Can you
I
explain that
chuckle a little bit because we just had a meeting earlier today with literally we're saying what does proficiency mean, and that's a complicated one, right? What does proficiency mean? And ultimately, it's a relatively arbitrary bar because each state can define it differently. I think our state has a pretty good handle on what proficiency is. It's a very lofty goal because even the states that are the districts that are at the very highest level. They're in the 60% proficient range. I think we have one that hits in the 70s, but that's very rare. So proficiency is measured exclusively at the elementary and middle school level by the forward exam in ELA and math, and then at the high school level, 9 and 10 by pre-ACT and 11th grade by ACT. And it is really just a test score that defines that. So it's up to us to figure out what does that mean for us in our district, in our curriculum, in our own internal assessments. So we're going through a process of aligning those. So a teacher can say, I know my student is on track to be proficient, and if they're not, I know exactly what to do and where the resources are to improve.
Awesome.
Mr. President?
I
Yes.
had one other part. I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Molly.
I should have said that. In terms of the pandemic, the idea that lots of kids lost or didn't progress is kind of out there. How are we doing compared to other school districts as far as learning loss?
That's that really good question. And in one, I don't want to name it because I don't want to get it wrong, but in one of the areas we've surpassed pre-pandemic levels in terms of achievement, which is fantastic. And board members should be proud of this. We worked really hard to maintain normal instruction as best we could. Therefore, our learning loss was mitigated a little bit, and I think that's why we're able to already have rebounded as much as we have.
Thank you.
All right, Bob?
I've got a four-part question. Just knowing that math score is excellent on 3.9, obviously is good news. I'm also targeting or being able to identify those subgroups that are in most need. So we've talked about regularly, so good to hear that. I'm very excited, even say super excited, that the new standard is, if I've got it right, new curriculum, implement on the fly, and super excited. Right? That's
Nailed
the new
it.
standard. Thank you.
Sure.
That is great news. Any other board members? Yes.
Mr. President, I was just curious, when you're looking at the elementary scores, because I did look at the individual ones, how you take that data away and what solutions are you looking at? Because, all of these kids are Hudson School District kids, but the performance is different at all of our elementaries.
Yeah, that's a really good point and a good question. when we talk about comparing, this also allows us to compare across our schools. Obviously, we only have one middle school, one high school, but we have several elementary schools. So it does influence how resources are distributed. Now, not the report card, but because we already have the assessment results, but the assessment results certainly do. And also, the elementary principals collaborate quite frequently and try to learn from one another. So they're waiting for those report card results and saying, what are you doing? What's happening here? I don't want to spoil a celebration, but there's some data out there that is pretty impressive that is being shared nationally about our elementary schools, with a couple doing exceptionally well, but they're all actually doing very well. The key is learning from one another, figuring out where those areas to focus are. The reality is, although there's differences by school, that certainly is the case, we have to dissect one level more, and sometimes two levels more, which is we need to look at grade levels. Because even though we have really high performing, we have some schools that outperform others, that is certainly true. Even in our highest performing school, we have other schools who have individual grade levels that might be edging out their grade level. So we have to really dig down. What I say often is it's critical that we're focused on our area of influence. So if we want to make sure that teachers care most about their students' performance, they need to care more than anyone else. They need to care more than their principal. They certainly need to care more than the teaching and learning department. And the principal needs to care more about the performance of their school than anyone else. More than me, more than the families, they've got to be hyper focused on that. And we, as a teaching and learning department, all of us need to be incredibly focused on the results of the district. As soon as we pull off of that in any way where we're not completely aligned, it takes us off of our game and we're not able to provide the energy that we need. If I need to worry more about a school's performance than a teacher or than a principal, then I know that we need to adjust the way we're doing business. And if a principal is concerned more about a classroom performance than that teacher, then they need to do some work to make sure that we realign. So that's how we use that data.
Mr. President?
Yes, Megan.
Just thinking about from a parent's point of view, and I don't know if parents see the forward exam results, we see the FAST result.
Yep, they see forward as well.
Okay,
It
sorry,
gets
I
mailed
think
out.
everything
That's-
starting with the
that's
same
right.
letter makes it confusing for me when it comes home. But, you get those results, and then you also get your report card for your kid. And that may show they're on grade level for everything, whereas the exam results might not, because some kids aren't great test takers. And so, how, and obviously, parents should talk to teachers like they do at conferences, but how does the district, the teachers think about evaluating students sort of on those multiple measures when you're like, man, everything's going great in the classroom, but they're not so great on the test?
Yeah, so excellent question, and that is exactly why we're going down this road of this defining proficiency project. Knowing that if we really clearly define it, and we're probably closer at the elementary because our report card is standards-based, so at the elementary level, you can see by the prioritized standard by grade level, not just math, this big overall idea. You can see by multiplying two-digit numbers, this is where we are. So that data is a little more readily available at the elementary level. That is probably the most important thing. We know that you always hear the one test, one day, and that certainly is true, but if you look at the results district by district, school by school, they're relatively consistent, meaning it's a pretty good measure. It's not wildly variable when you look at the school level, but they don't have the ability to dig in by individual standards. So we need to, we talk about triangulating the data frequently. We need to make sure we look at all of the sources and see what story that's telling us about that student. So that's that defining proficiency project that we'll be working on. Sure.
Right, any other further questions? But very good news. And when will be the next evaluations that are going to be done? So when are those assessments?
Yep, so we have the winter screening is underway. We actually just received, so a little advanced good news, one grade level is done at the middle school math. So I already talked about the impressive increase in proficiency. Our winter screening looked fantastic, great growth across the band. So what we look at with these tests, they're a little bit more precise, a little bit more sensitive. So we're able to look at bands of students. So students that were performing in the lowest band, that has shrunk, meaning we have fewer students at the lowest. The second level, that has shrunk, and the upper two have grown. Exactly the profile we want to see. So we're gathering that data as it comes in. By end of January, all of our winter data will be in, and then we'll be gearing up for the big spring assessments.
Okay. And then I think that there's little notes that go home to the folks in the Thursday packet to make sure that their kid has plenty of sleep and
Yeah.
good nutrition and all that for the
Yep,
day of testing.
absolutely. It's all important. Certainly, we want to do our best.
All right, so next up is the, thank you, Dave, and then the UW directed mission participation. Nick?
Yes. So, and Megan had actually emailed me about this, I think it was last week, but this is something that one of our counselors came to us, I want to say probably a month and a half ago or so, after attending some meetings, said, hey, we should really look at getting involved in this direct admit process through the University of Wisconsin system. And what this, so we started down that path, we filled out the paperwork, and then got accepted into the pilot first round, as one of the first round districts to be a part of it. But what will happen is, starting with the class of 2025, if kids meet our graduation requirements and they meet the admittance requirements for the university as far as the number of courses and things along those lines, they're automatically admitted into these universities through the UW system. They don't have to fill out an application. They don't have to pay a fee. They don't. They'll get an individualized letter from any or all of the universities that they are that they'd be admitted to, letting them know they're admitted and they have that opportunity to attend. And so, it really is a great program. It's to streamline things. We had to work through some things to allow their systems to talk with our systems and things along those lines. But we're in the process now of, I think the last thing we have to do is kind of the memorandum of understanding as it relates to data sharing and privacy and things along those lines. But this is a great program for our kids. So 10 of the 13 UW schools are involved in this program. I think we know UW-Madison gets so many applications that they can't handle even what they currently get, so they're not part of it. But not quite sure why UW-Eau Claire and UW-La Crosse aren't part of it. I've been trying to read to find out, but the other 10 UW schools are part of it, and so this should be a great program for our kids. Just trying to look for more opportunities to give kids, to kind of remove barriers from kids. And I think that the rationale behind this, if you go to this website and you look at their PowerPoint, is it talks about one of the barriers to post-secondary sometimes is the application process, especially kids that would be first-generation college students, not to mention the fees associated a lot of times with the application processes. And so this system looks to kind of remove those barriers. And so we're fortunate to be a part of it. And again, this was spearheaded by our counseling department at the high school. So big thank you to them. So any questions about this system?
I guess I had a question. When do the kids find out that they've made it in?
Yeah, so it'll be next, I think it starts, it's fall of 2024. They look at grades up to junior year and then classes that are currently enrolled in and where their grades are sitting. But I think, their final acceptance letter actually comes, I think, in January of 24, I believe is what they said. But
So it's during their senior year?
January 25. Because it'd be the class of 25 is the first class that gets to do this. That's
Okay.
part of this program.
So wouldn't be applicable to our
Current seniors. no.
current seniors, but our current juniors would find out when they are seniors,
Yep.
correct? All right, very good. Any other questions? All right. That's another good news report. Thank you, Nick. Next up, community input through committees.
So this was just something people asked us to kind of recap, where community has different opportunities to provide input to the school district and feedback. And, one of the committees I'll talk about is our facility committee that we ran a year ago, actually 2 years ago, as we worked through the process related to facilities. I know, Dave, you have several committees. I don't know if you wanted to mention some of the committees that have direct community involvement in them.
Sure, yeah, so I think the kind of flagship for us is our Teaching Learning Advisory Council. That's sizable group we actually just met this last week, focused on all issues related to teaching and learning. Tara and I, we partnered on our topic last week, so it really crossed over both. We have, then there's some offshoots to that. We reported on the Human Growth and Development Committee. That was big work, but that was more of an ad hoc opportunity. But we see those from time to time when there's something very specific. We pull together teams We also have a group of teachers and staff that focus on family and community engagement. That's their whole purpose. We meet about 4 times throughout the year to plan for events and activities to increase involvement, engagement, and opportunities to share their thoughts.
So Dave, on that first committee, you mentioned the teaching and learning. Do they have to be parents? Do they have to have kids in the schools to be on that?
They are all parents or grandparents. We do have some grandparents that represent, but yes, that one is specific to their students. So we want to make sure that because we talk about the student experience, they need to have that background in order to engage in that conversation.
Okay, but it can be for grandparents too.
Yes.
All right, good.
And Tara, any committees related to student services, mental health, things along those lines?
Last year, we had our Mental Health Advisory Committee, which was community input. You didn't have to be a parent to be on there. With the not specific grant this year, we've changed some things and are looking for some other ways to get community input. Our community input was slowly fading as they were on a lot of different tables. So we're looking at what table do we want to come to for the mental health work, and so stay tuned for that. But community input, that's all I can think of.
No, absolutely. And one of the big one that's coming up is our large community conversation that we're going to have coming up in April, where we're going to have lots of opportunities for people to provide feedback and input to the school district. That community conversation, actually, the planning committee is kicking off on Wednesday. Our planning committee, I think, has 14 different people on it, 2 board members that are part of that committee, and just 3 district staff members, and the rest are all community members on that committee. Everything from students to more veteran community members to business owners to booster members to members of the faith community. So a variety of different folks that will be a part of that committee that will be planning and making sure that we're hitting all of the different stakeholder groups and doing good stakeholder mapping as we get our invitations out for the big April event. And looking forward to that. So lots of different opportunities for people if they want to get involved in the Hudson School District as far as being able to provide feedback or input on different committees. And, you know, one committee that we did have a while back, it's not active right now, is we had a school start time committee. That was about 3 years ago. And that was made up of both community members and parents and staff members as well. So as different committees come up or as the board assigns different committees with different work, we are always looking for volunteers to be a part of that.
So on that future search, there's going to be a kind of a task force, and we had a whole session where we tried to brainstorm for getting a broad spectrum of stakeholders. So to plan that, again, just remind the folks when that's going to be, because not everyone has the time or the ability to commit to being on a committee for a whole year or for a 2-year period of time, you know, running back to back or anything, but this future search is an opportunity to participate in a short term, but albeit intense level.
Absolutely. So the future search is going to be, the community conversation is going to be happening the 4th, 5th, and 6th of April. It's a Thursday night, Friday night, and a Saturday morning. It's being facilitated by Drew Howick from Howick and Associates. And so that's, you know, there'll be more details coming with invitations and publications and things along those lines. Our goal is to get 200 to 300 people in the room to have a conversation about where we've been as a school district, where we currently are, and where do we want to go, so that it can help the board and help administration kind of guide our direction moving forward and making sure that we're meeting the needs and doing what the community wants us to do as far as delivering education for the kids of our community.
So that'll be right after spring election then, all right?
Correct.
Mr. President?
Yes, Bob.
Just as far as I know, the future search is going to be a very large, intense process. I wonder if some of the facilities task force members, you know, they were part of that process, and it was long, and then they might not have kids that are still in the district, so they might not be getting some of these mailings or whatever. And not just the facilities task force, but like even the boundary. I mean, if we had people that were served on committees before, can we still let them know what we're doing through, if they fall through the cracks on those mailings?
Yeah, absolutely. And we, a lot of our invitations we're sending out via direct mailing to every door in the district, so that not just people that we have email addresses for, but everybody has an opportunity to look at it. There's going to be an article coming out here in the December newsletter, which I think should hit mailboxes this week, maybe. that's going to talk about it, and then we have some other direct mailings that'll go out. But yeah, we can absolutely utilize some of those existing email lists because we still have all of those emails from people in past committees to continue to keep them involved. Absolutely.
All right. Any further questions on that? Otherwise, next up, the Teacher Advisory Committee report.
That's
I think
Andrea.
Andrea?
Yes, it could be Molly as well, because now we have added. Feel free to chime in as you need. So we had our meeting on November 29th, and we're happy to add Molly, and I know Bob can come on occasion as well. Whenever your February 28th is our next meeting. Exciting times. We had 6 new members in addition to Molly and Bob, and during the meeting, we also clarified we actually added another member. There was a request from our principal group to add a principal representative. And so Dolph Schmidt volunteered to serve in that capacity, and the committee, we like to bring those type of things to the committee. And so based on the conversation, there was unanimous support for adding Dolph. And then Rachel Miller also volunteered to be the co-chair with me on the committee. So it's really a partnership between Rachel and myself in developing the agendas, and then she gathers input from teachers, I gather input from administration, and then we work collaboratively to create that agenda. So it was a little, because we didn't have the co-chair in place for this meeting, it was a little wonky from the perspective of it was a little administrative heavy. There was a lot of topics about whether it was the rater compensation system, our onboarding initiative that we're working really intensely on, our veteran ambassador program, construction, property updates. Primarily, a lot of the staff concerns that were coming out were handbook related. The one that consistently pops up, personal day issues, the use of, limitations, some of which we're trying to address with the future RCS compensation system. So it was great conversations. And we talked about the report card. We like to kind of give them information as we're gearing up for the board meetings as well, so that we can all be on the same page, because our staff need to be intimately involved in these conversations since they're the ones in the classroom and doing the work. So that's just a quick synopsis of the meeting.
All right, Molly, did she miss anything?
She covered it 100% perfectly.
All right.
She did a great
Okay,
job. It was a
sounds
good
good.
meeting, and really nice to meet teachers. And one thing I mean, same notes as you, but it's interesting. Well, you know that teachers care, obviously, but just that they're voicing, like, about how hard it is to be gone, and just some of those things. And it was great to see such dedicated professionals in person.
All right. Very good. Thank you for that report. Next up, board member district activity recap. We've done this I think we missed it at the November meeting, but we did it in October. Again, we're full into the school year now, and I guess I'll just start off since that last meeting. I been to a volleyball game. I went to basketball, both boys and girls here this last weekend, and that musical was just awesome. Attended that with my wife and my daughter and her boyfriend and everything. So they were pretty in awe, I guess would be, awestruck would be a good word. But again, hitting it out of the park, we got a lot of talented kids in this district. So it's great to see them in athletic endeavors, arts or non-athletic endeavors, whatever that might be. I don't know if other board members had things they attended.
Mr. President?
Yes.
I went to the Home for the Holidays concert last night, and that was my first time going to it, and it was unbelievably awesome. It was a steal for $15 for an adult ticket. Like, I was just so impressed with our choir department, with the collaboration with River City Orchestra. My 8-year-old was like magical for her. And I also just wanted to give a shout out and a thank you to all the parent organizations at our grade schools and our middle schools. I know they were pulling together meals for teachers for conferences, and I know the other grade schools have had a lot of activities, but there was the Holton Bazaar, which was fantastic as usual, and then the Holton All-School Skate is coming up next week. And these parent organizations at all of our schools, they put in so much work for these special days for our students. So I'm just very thankful for all that volunteer time they put in.
Right, yes, Kate.
Well, the boys' swim season is underway, so we've been enjoying listening to them talk about practice and how hard it is in and out of the pool. But they have 2 home meets coming up, the 19th and the 21st. So that's next week, right before Christmas, if anybody wants to go and root them on. And then the other thing is that the German exchange students came for, I think it was about 2.5 weeks, and stayed with probably 20 different families. And the amount of time that the German teachers put into making that really special for those kids is amazing. And the German students were just raving about our schools and all the kids here and the teachers, and had a wonderful time. So a good learning experience for everybody.
That's great. Anyone else? Lynn?
Mr. President, well, we are heavy into the hockey season already, and both boys and girls had their first home game in their new digs. So it's a beautiful facility if you want to come watch a hockey game. It's a very long project, 5 years in the making, but they did connect the 2 sheets of ice, and our high school kids have a very nice locker room and new sound system and lights, and it's just pretty fantastic. We have some glitches that we had to get through with those first home games where certain things aren't working the way that they need to work, but both boys and girls had their first home game. This next Friday is the Always Smile game, which is in memory of one of our students who passed away, and it's a big focus on mental health. So both the boys and the girls teams are out there handing candy bars to their classmates with the free admission to the game, and just trying to generate some excitement about getting kids there. But Heidi T. Winkle and her husband raised a lot of money, and they do give back to our district with mental health issues. So, and then I was also at the concert last night, and it was fantastic. I was really enthused to see so many alumni come back. I thought that was really cool, so.
Yes. So what nights of the week are the best when do they have the home games for hockey?
It's usually Tuesday or Thursdays. It just depends.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks.
Check your district website.
Okay, yep, I know. Well, yeah, it requires advanced planning, so yes.
Mr. President?
Yes, Bob.
I saw Jamie at the basketball and Nick at the games on, what day was that? Friday, yeah. It was amazing how the parking lot was absolutely full. You had, students, whether it was band, sports, other clubs, the fitness center, just busy. That place was just buzzing, the whole school. It was exciting.
I think the parking lot was full with a lot of River Falls parents too, because I saw that side of the gym was very, very full, so. All right. Thank you for sharing, everyone. And now, next, I will entertain a motion to go into the consent agenda and approve those items. With the specific spending language that's on the board.
Mr. President?
Yes, our newly elected treasurer.
I might
Go
as well
ahead.
dive in, right? Yeah. I move approval of the consent items and that the Chief Financial and Operations Officer be authorized to pay bills in the amount of $1,850,375.69.
Second.
All right. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. All the consent agenda items are approved, and we have some retirements, right,
We
Andrea?
do. We have several, so bear with me a moment because we definitely want to recognize all of these. And I expect, given the timeline of December 15th as the deadline for notification of retirement, we'll also have additional retirements prior or at the January board meeting as well. But this group for the month of December, first up is Deborah Amundsen. She's a special ed para, North Hudson, 12 years of service in the district. Then we have Christy Bjork. She's a GT teacher at the middle school. She's been here 18 years. Amy Mueller, who's a health and phy ed teacher at the middle school, 34 years in the Hudson School District. And then right after that is John Dornfeld, a school counselor at the high school. And he has been here 33 years. We have a lot of longtime senior teachers here, staff members. Lisa Wasson, fourth grade teacher at Holton, 27 years of service in the district. Susie Beaupre, a speech and language pathologist at Hudson Prairie, 21 years of service. Chris Carlson, Strive teacher at the high school, 15 years of service. And Maureen Lewis, who is a family consumer ed teacher at the high school, and she has 19 years of service. So that's the batch for this month. And certainly want to celebrate all their accomplishments and their time here in the district, and we can't wait to celebrate them at the recognition banquet this spring.
All right. So by my math, that's 179 years that we just acknowledged, so. All right, thank you all to your dedication to the district, appreciate that, and hopefully they will all be working right up until the last day, so they go through the finish line. But I know we have this deadline, but we need to kind of give a good idea of who's leaving, when they're going to be retiring, so we can fire up. It's not exactly easy to replace people these days.
No, and something that's been really fun is with our new Veteran Ambassador Program, the number of these retirees saying, yep, we're retiring, but we really want to help support that program going into next year. And so they're already committed to participating in it as retirees that are going to help our first-year teachers. So that's a really kind of fun new bridge that we're creating.
Yes. All right. Next up then would be the first reading of Series 700 policy revisions. These were discussed at our work session.
Yep,
In
so
November.
these, there's no difference or no changes to these from the work session last month. So the administration's recommendation would be to approve the first reading of this select set of policies. As we said, with the exception, I think, 2 more policies, once we get those all done here in the next month or 2, we will have had a policy review of every policy in the district, and then we'll start a new 5-year cycle. So the administration's recommendation is to approve the first reading.
All right, and just to be clear, because it does, there is one from the 400 series, 453-4, which is administering medications, that was put in there because it's close to support services, but it's also important because there's change in the
Yep. It's just-
statute.
Yep,
so.
just, it's not even a change in statute, it's just a change in how we operate so that our policy aligns more with what our practice is. And so
Okay.
it made sense. And then it also related to Narcan, making sure that we have, there's been a huge push both by the county and statewide to make sure that we have Narcan in all of our buildings. And so we will have that as well.
All right, do we have any questions about specific policies? If not, I would entertain a motion to approve the first reading.
Mr. President, I move to approve the first reading of the Series 700 policies.
Right? Is there a second?
Second?
All right, we have a motion, a second. Is there further discussion regarding approval of the first reading? There will be another meeting where we'll have the second reading, and then we will be through this, as Nick pointed out.
Yep.
I'm not seeing anyone raising their hands or running to their button, so all those in favor of approving the first reading signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. Next up is the EP Rock Playground proposal. Bonnie? This is something that we hadn't discussed specifically, I think mentioned it very generally before, but why don't you discuss why we're bringing it up now and what our timeline is?
Sure. So part of the, one of the projects in the referendum that was passed was the replacement of the EP Rock Playground. So we've been working with the staff, the principal, and they have come up with a proposal which is attached. I don't know if you want to click on that. And so this was the proposal that was put out for bid. Really wanted to focus on creating an environment for all students with accessibility for all of our students. Our goal is to get bids into you at our next meeting, so we can alleviate a new year price increase. And our goal would be to install this, this upcoming summer.
Okay, and I saw in your memo, the budget had been in that 400,000 area, so that's, we're hoping the bids come in under that, right?
Yep, our initial proposal came, or the initial kind of quote that we're about $20,000 under, but we are seeking other bids just to get the best bang for the buck for the district.
And the goal would be for that to be approved a week from tonight.
Correct.
So we can beat that January 1 price increase.
Correct.
Okay. Because even 5%, there's our $20,000 savings right there, so.
Yep.
Mr. President?
Yes,
I know this is not necessarily what it'll look like, but I love the shade structures. You know, when it's hot in the summer and you want to take your kids to the park and there's no shade and the slides are all hot and there's not enough parks that have those. So I just think it's a great thing that makes the playground usable for families throughout the summer as well.
Well, I think it extends the life of the equipment too when it's not out in the sun all the time, so.
And this is pretty comparable to what we've done in other playgrounds. So we
Yep,
just
the-
did North Hudson a year or two ago.
Yep,
It was
so
about
the three
400,000.
previous ones have been Holton, Willow, and
Yep.
North Hudson, Willow, and Holton have all been done, so this is our next one.
And I didn't ask this question before, I didn't mean to put you on the spot, but the EP Rock equipment that we do have has been there, do you know how long?
I do not.
Okay.
But I can find out for you.
And some of that equipment will stay. I mean, there is some equipment that's in good shape. We looked at on Friday, Dolph and I were walking the building. Some of it will stay, but there's quite a few of it that, quite a bit of it that will go, as we work through it, so.
Well, yeah, go ahead.
Thanks.
Molly.
I talked to Bonnie a little bit about this, and of course, always responsive. And I just love that it's designed for all kids, and that's been an emphasis with the teachers and the principal, that all kids can play with it, and it's fewer barriers than in the past, so thank you.
They did a really nice job.
You know, sometimes people ask us, why is it not a solid rubber fall area and why we use wood chips? It's about double to do that kind of poured in place rubber surface instead of wood chips. So when we say double, not double from the wood chips, but it doubles the cost of the structure from about $400,000 to $800,000. So wood chips meet the requirements, and you know, as Molly said, we're still able to allow some accessibility features and things along those lines so that all of our kids can utilize the facility.
Probably more environmentally friendly by using the wood chips as well. And something that can be readily replenished, repaired, if you will, more cheaply, so that's good.
Just please make sure there's some budget in there for paint on the map of the United States at EP Rock. That's all.
I think that asphalt's actually being replaced, but we'll have you come out and repaint it for us, Bob. I appreciate that. Thank you for volunteering, Bob. I appreciate that. You'll be able to give a report on it at the follow-up
But,
meeting.
so we will get some type of memo. I know we're on a very compressed timetable here, because we don't want to have to meet between Christmas and New Year's to meet that. So we are going to have something to review by Monday night.
Yep, as soon as we get it in, we're gonna forward it out for your review.
Excellent. All right. Any further questions on that? Otherwise, that one of those necessary things that needs to be done every so often. And it's amazing how fast 20 years or 25 years goes by. So next up, the Willow River Elementary School chiller replacement update.
So this one isn't quite as exciting, but we did talk about it this fall. The Willow River Elementary chiller is experiencing some age issues. So we have worked with MSA Professional Services, develops bid specifications. It's currently out for bid, and our goal is to bring that to you on Monday as well for approval. So bids are due on Friday. Our hope is that they'll be able to evaluate them and provide a recommendation on Monday.
And if you have specific technical questions about the chillers, Bonnie would love to.
Bonnie will find the answers for you and get back to you.
Is this part of the result of storm damage or no?
No, this is not a storm damage issue. This is, the chiller's old and it's failing, and, Yep, it's basically air conditioning for the building, and it's, right now, we are on borrowed time.
Right. Well, the chiller may not be exciting to replace in the winter, but I can guarantee you those people that work there in the summer, very much excited about having something that works. And, yeah, it's again, a good time to do it before it's absolutely done and not usable, so.
And it's about a 10 to 12 month lead time, so there's a strong possibility that this won't actually be in. And this will be actually, the first time it probably turns on might be summer of '25 or spring of '25. That's why, we're really working on borrowed time here, so.
But we got this news, 3-4 months ago.
Correct.
And, yeah, we were crossing our fingers as we got into the cooler months. We made it, but we'll have to start crossing them again come come May or June, whenever those 90-degree temperatures start. All right. No action then tonight, but we will be intending to take action to get that bid awarded and then get that 10 to 12-month lead time started. All right. Any further questions? Otherwise, I'll entertain a motion to go into closed session pursuant to language on the board.
Mr. President, the
Kate.
board will entertain a motion to convene in closed session pursuant to Wisconsin Statute 19.85, Parent 1, Parent D, to consider strategies for crime detection and prevention.
Second.
We have a motion, a second, and that requires a roll call vote to go into closed session. Bauman.
Aye.
Garza. Powers.
Aye.
Robson.
Aye.
Rozowski.
Aye.
And Johnson is aye. The motion passes, and we'll go into closed session, go into a short recess here to allow our camera people to get their equipment together. We'll reconvene in 5 minutes.